What's going on, everyone? So we got some news today that Courtney Cox is in discussions to return to Scream 7. This is something that isn't a huge surprise, isn't a huge shock. Obviously, it's been rumored for a while, but beyond it being rumored, it's just something that really made sense, right? Courtney Cox was one of the few that signed up pretty much immediately for both Scream 5 and 6, which is really a turnaround from Scream 4, because Scream 4, she was very public and open about how she just, she wanted to move away from the franchise. But a lot can change. It was like an 11-year span in between 4 and 5. So, again, a lot can change. And look, having Gale Weathers in the film is always good. Having Courtney Cox, she at this point is the only character that's been in every one of these movies, right? Even Sidney Prescott wasn't in Scream 6, but Gale Weathers was. And look, I've talked repeatedly that I think Gale Weathers' trajectory and story arc of her character has been by far the best in the franchise. I mean, even more so than Sidney Prescott. Just all the progressions and just change from 1 through 3 to 1 through 4. And then you add in even 5. 6, for being honest, was a little lackluster with the just storytelling of Gale Weathers. In my opinion, in Scream 6, she was kind of more of a glorified cameo than she was an actual character and role. But this has been something that has been my problem with 5 and 6, right? With Scream 5, it was more so Sidney Prescott. I felt like there was a lot of missed opportunities. I felt like there was a lot of just like her just kind of being there for the sake of being there, right? Like, what did she do in that film that drove the plot, that drove the story, that made sense that somebody else couldn't have done, right? Outside of like shooting through the doors and, hanging up the I'm bored, like everything else could have been done by somebody else. All of her help and everything that she did in the end to take down the Ghostface, we knew Mindy was alive. She could have easily been the hero and showed up and saved everyone. Her putting the tracker on. She says in that sequence that, she basically got it from Gale. So Gale could have put the tracker on. We didn't even get to see, a reaction to the loss of Dewey. And I get people say, she's hardened now, she's this, she's that. That's fine, but then show it. Show her I'm not saying she has to break down and cry and bawl her eyes out and just like, have an emotional breakdown. No, I'm saying like at least even if she just gets the call and she's just like, sits there with that face of just like defeat for a second and then snaps out of it, whatever, anything would have been better than nothing. We got literally no just idea of how Sidney took the news. She showed up, Gale, and that was it, right? And again, it was just her kind of being in the film just to be in the film. And then Scream 6, again, same thing, same question. What did Gale do that drove the plot and the story? The only thing that she did that was significant was discover the shrine room. But again, they took that away from her by Dermot Mulroney revealing, Detective Bailey revealing that, hey, I was going to reveal that to you guys and say I stumbled across it, but she's a good reporter. She found it first, right? So to me, it's like even the one thing that Gale did to drive and further the plot, you didn't need her for. Detective Bailey could have done it. And even as far as like, Hayden Panettiere as Kirby, like what was the point of Kirby in that movie, right? Like she could have been any FBI agent. It didn't have to be Kirby. It's just, I have my concerns and reservations because of Scream 5 and 6 of properly telling stories with the characters that they're not familiar with, right? These aren't their characters. These were Wes and Kevin's characters that they had to try to figure out and expand on. And it just kind of felt like either A, they have no idea how to write and expand on these characters, or B, they don't care enough about those characters to really properly write them, tell a story, that they want to focus more on their new characters. Okay, if that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but then don't have Gale and Sidney in the movie. Or don't market them like if they're going to have a big role or whatever, or just have them in a brief scene or something, right? Whatever. I don't know. I just, the way the execution of their characters has not been great. And so to me, if you're going to have Gale in the movie, you need to have her in the movie, right? Have a good dynamic. I've mentioned this before. Scream 4 is a great example of properly intertwining a new cast and the OG characters, right? Like, that film wasn't about Sidney. It was about Jill. And she was the focus, and she was the target, and then the big twist at the end, right? Like, it was a Jill-led film. It wasn't a Sidney-led film. Sidney was just a part of it, right? But if you watch that movie, you could feel like, oh, this is a Sydney-led film. Like, oh, this is clearly a Sydney movie. But no, right? It was about Jill. And I mean, even Sydney was just kind of a casualty for being there. If Sydney never came, Jill was still going to do what she was going to do because she wanted to be the star, right? She wanted to be the survivor. She wanted to be the new Sid, right? So to me, take some notes from Scream 4 on how to integrate these characters. Gale, you got to see an extended story arc, right? Her and Dewey are married. She's trying to be a house mom and a housewife, and it's just not working for her. She's having her struggles. She's having her frustrations. Ghostface comes to town and she's thrilled. And she's like, I get to go rogue now. Let's go. I'm going to get a new book. I'm going to get a new story, right? Like, you got to see development and growth in her character. You got to see where she was. You got to have a good feel and understanding. And again, she was like the 5th most important character in that movie, right? Same thing with Dewey and all this. So to me, take some notes, right? We need a structured film like that. Have Gale, have Sydney, have your new characters, have your new cast. That's great. But you got to find the proper balance. I'm never going to complain about having Gale Weathers and seeing Gale Weathers in a Scream movie. But I will complain about the lack of utilization of Gale in the Scream movie. Right? I'm fine with her being in the movie, but I want to see her expanded. If you can't come up with a good, convincing idea, then fine, just don't have her in it. You don't have to have her in this movie. Just like you didn't have to have Sydney in Scream 6. Scream 6 was fine. It didn't need Sydney. There was nothing about that film where you're like, God, Sydney really needed to be it. No. Scream 5 didn't need Sydney, right? So Scream 5 needed Gale because it was, this Gale and Dewey story. But even that, even the way that they structured that drove me crazy. Because, like in Scream 5, Dewey was the one that bailed. Dewey was the one that couldn't hack it, right? You completely turned the characters around. Gale was the one that couldn't hack it. Gale was the one, like, if Gale would have like, let's say Woodsboro, right? They were in Woodsboro in Scream 4. Let's say Dewey stuck around in Woodsboro, and you could have even, I don't like that he lost the sheriff. Like, the whole story, in my opinion, was terrible. But let's say you wanted to keep that, right? Okay, so Dewey loses his job as the sheriff. Gale says, let's move to New York. I can do this. And Dewey says, no, I can't leave Woodsboro. And Gale just says, all right, fine, then I can't be with you. And she goes to New York. Right? Like, because that's Gale's character. Gale's the one that leaves. You know how we know that? Scream 3. They set that whole thing up, right? That was the whole point. When they have that little meeting in the cafe or dinner place, whatever it was, and Gale's relaying to her, like, I stuck by you, while you healed, but days felt like years in Woodsboro, right? And then, it's 60 minutes too, and then Dewey's like, what's wrong with being Gale Weathers? You could have stayed, right? Like, that's Gale. Gale's the one that left. So, to me, it's like, even the story, even the expansion on the characters didn't make sense. Dewey, that wasn't Dewey's character. I get that he was kind of supposed to be this broken man and stuff. Well, you could have still done that with Gale leaving. You could have kept the character stories and the arc of the characters intact and still told the same story if you wanted to. So, again, I just don't have a ton of confidence in the writing. And I know some people go, oh, well, you're so critical and crucial to the writing. Like, tell me where I'm wrong, right? Like, tell me what's inaccurate. It's fine to say, I wasn't that bad. Okay, that's fine. If you liked it, great. Cool. I'm glad you liked it. But I was disappointed. I expected more. They're changing these characters and they're underutilizing these characters that I grew up with, that I was beloved. And it's fine. And I have no problems moving off the characters. No problem. If you want to move off them, move off of them. I've said it a million times. I said it before Scream 5 that I think this movie shouldn't have Gale and Sydney in it. I wanted them to go fresh. I've been begging for a fresh start for years now. And we just haven't gotten it. So, and it's just like every movie solidifies my point of, like, we need to just move off of these characters. I'm hoping now, because Kevin Williamson is involved and Kevin's going to be at the helm, although he's not writing, I'm sure he's going to have some say in the writer room, that now we can get some good growth, some good story of Gale. Because, nobody knows these characters better than Gale, or knows these characters better than Kevin Williamson, of Gale, Sydney, and then Dewey. But, we know what happened to Dewey. So, to me, it's like I'm hoping Kevin can paint the picture to show the development and growth of these characters if they're in the film. I do believe that this is going to be, this will be a Sydney-focused film. That's fine. But I don't want that for the sake of Gale just kind of being, hey, just shove her to the back of the stove, right? And we'll just kind of pop her in and out throughout, right? Like, no, like, if you're going to have her in the movie, utilize her. I'm not saying you have to have her in every scene. I'm not saying she has to be in, 30 minutes of the movie or anything, but like, no, you need to have something with her that drives the plot, that continues the story, that ties her in, right? Like, outside of just like she's there and she's Gale Weathers. And you don't have to do anything crazy, right? Like, Gale doesn't need a lot of motivation to go show up where Ghostface is. Right? She's her character basically writes itself in a lot of ways. So, I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts on Gale returning, or Courtney Cox returning? Are you excited? Do you want to see her character? Do you agree with my points? Do you disagree with my points? How do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Now subscribe to the channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.